All right, folks, welcome back to your number one stop of Power Universe reviews and discussions. It's Nigeria and Lucas here, and we're back for episode 2 of Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, Reaping, and Sowing. Uncle Lou, how you doing tonight, man?
Hey, man, I am ready to get into the craziness of this episode.
Yeah.
Man, when white women go wrong, or some of that nature should be the name of this one.
There's a lot of jungle fever going on. I know that word's going to be thrown. I guarantee that word gets thrown in one of these episodes. It won't be long.
It got to. It's supposed to be the 90s too, and this is around the time jungle fever came out. So, man, the moment he hit that line at the end, I protect my girl. I'm thinking, wait a minute, when did that happen?
Hey yo, as much as I'm rooting for him to be a different character from what he was in Ballers, he's driving down that alley. He just made the left. He hasn't hit the gas yet, but he's right on path right now. But I will say, first off, shout out to everybody that checked out our review last week. I will say that while that was a super strong pilot episode and everybody's saying it's the best, and people forget that when Power first came out, there was nothing to really compare it to within its own universe. So it's not a fair argument, but you would expect things to get better as they create more content. As the next thing comes out and the next thing, you're going to say it's better. So I don't want to go down that route, but I do want to start off by saying, like, this feels like an entirely different show. Based on looking at this with the critic hat on, the score is definitely different from how the other shows are done, and because of the time, the era of when the show is, you expect that. Performances are definitely different as well too. We always got that one model, that sex figure, and although they are still having sex, and even though we can all say, well, it's clearly what's his name with the sympathy. Symphony. Okay,
black man names. It's the 80s.
Yeah,
it's the 80s, man.
You're right.
There's people named Symphony out there right now.
You're right, and it's easy to say that it's probably going to be him, but right now it hasn't truly been him. He's not taking a traditional route. I mean, he even came off saying, "Let's take things slow." So I don't want to compare this to other shows and whatnot.
I think Symphony crooked anyway, so it don't matter.
Could be.
Yeah,
absolutely could be.
Dang.
But yeah, I just want to say this feels like an entirely different show from all of the other Power shows. But I will say one thing I so loved about this episode. I even had to go dig up the actress name, Haley Kilgore, who plays Jukebox. That original song that she sung, beautiful.
What original song did she sing?
That song at the end, at least I never heard it. Don't come at me wrong.
Oh my God. Wait. Okay. Unless I'm losing it. Not only is that not an original song, that is literally one of the biggest R&B songs ever made. You talking about the right at the end? Oh man, I wish I had time to go back to listen to that song. I swear she was singing Whitney Houston, You Bring Me Love. And you said original.
I don't think.
Oh man, AG.
I won't dig myself in a bigger hole here.
I'm gonna say because I'm about to call you a 2000s baby.
Look, if it is, look, I'll take the heat for it. But either way,
people in the comments gonna get you if that's what she was saying. And I'm trying to.
You know what? But you could be right, because I waited for the credits to see what the song was, and it wasn't credited. And only original songs are credited. So
it was an acapella version of, because they switched it. She sung it, and then Rock and Symphony were listening to it.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. Either way, it was beautiful. I'm just saying.
We can't do nothing else this episode that is going to be as funny as you say that was an original song. Oh God, yes. But get back to the song, because I like the moment in that song.
Yeah.
I really like the song a lot, especially in 88 when it was released, 89, somewhere in that time.
Okay.
But I really do like the moment they surrounded with that song, just to show the life and death consequences of things in that moment. Yeah. We get the touching moments with Rock and Symphony. we get the hilariously interesting moments between Marcus and insert white woman, because I don't know her name yet.
Coney.
Coney.
Yep.
Damn. Coney.
Marcus, Marv. He has three names. It's Marvin, Mark, Marcus. So
there you go. Triple M.
Triple M.
Triple M. Their scene, which was funny and interesting. And then we switch all the way back to the tragedy of the setup that's happening.
Lulu. Yeah, Lulu like, and D-Wiz, man, that kind of hurt me, man. And it's weird because I wasn't totally invested into that character, but like, how many times have we seen that theme over all different genres of the young innocent boy who thinks it's all good and gets set up?
And not only that, I think it was apropos for her to be singing at that moment because she's the one who knew what was going to happen to him.
Yeah.
The look on her face when he got in that car told her that tells the audience like she knows this is not going to be good.
Yeah.
And we see her stressed out as she's singing this beautiful rendition of this song.
Yeah.
So I thought that was that was an amazing scene.
Yeah.
Just to sort of contrast that way.
I agree. I mean, I'm instantly going to go back and watch this scene just because I just thought it was really beautifully done. And then, and again, there was one scene very similar to this in Power, but with Miguel's song. Yeah. So, it's not like they haven't done this in the Power universe, but in the sense of like storytelling, this one I felt like this stood aside from everything. And it was really good. It was really, really good because I was a little conflicted with the beginning part of this episode because again, I was conflicted because I felt like the first episode had so much momentum and what it was trying to drive to go forward. And I felt like this one was still kind of coasting a little bit off the first instead of just being a next episode building. And then that second half of the episode is when they like kicked it into gear and like plot details and momentum started to come. So it's not to say it was a bad episode of no sorts. It's just that again, and hopefully we can completely get away with this. And again, I'll take the heat from this as well too, is that most time in Power episodes, when you hear previously on Power, you talk about everything that happened in the last episode, and then you're automatically going step forward with the next thing. And I felt like in the first part of this episode, we kind of still went back to revisit the stuff of the first episode, and then about the middle of it, then that's where they went into gear. Because
I think it's because it was such a poignant thing that happens, and with it introducing Kanan into this world.
Yeah.
So for them to then show or open up the second episode with Rock still having to deal with this situation.
Yeah.
I think I enjoyed the first part of the episode more than the second part. The second part is not bad in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I just knew kind of everything that was going to happen. But that first part of the episode and the setups that happened, that was great.
Yeah.
Down to the conversation, because the conversations between her and Joey Badass, I'm keep on calling the boy Joey Badass, but Unique. Joey Badass, Unique.
Yeah.
That conversation set in motion everything. And I think not only will it end up setting in motion everything for this episode, I think it's going to set up everything in motion for the season.
Yeah.
Because how can what we saw happen at the end of this episode not affect Kanan in a negative way?
Yeah. I mean, and you have to think about this too. Yeah, she is mom and she's playing protector. And she even said in the beginning, you pull the trick and you're in it. And she feels like it's her sworn duty to protect her son, which is a mom's duty, but also looking from a business standpoint, as she is the business owner, an organization runner. As Lulu said, hey, what you looking at me for? She runs this. She's doing the things in order to protect the business. And she bought a bando. She moved him there, and he's kind of confused because he's thinking he's getting a new position, a new job, and he is, next thing you know, he's in a safe house and he doesn't realize it. And while she did make the right decision, essentially, because like the dude said, he's dumb and he doesn't belong on the block. I mean, even his relationship and desire for Davina is a conflict of interest because we really don't know with him and his love for her, but him being the one to pull the trigger, which again, I love we're throwing out SAT words out here. I love the duality of the first episode of them saying who pulled the trigger, and now we still have to kind of be conflicted as to, well, D Wiz did it, so he deserved it, or no, Kanan did it, and he's actually getting by.
Well, to me, either way, Kanan is getting by. D Wiz only did it
because
for Kanan.
Yeah,
he did it for no other reason.
Oh well, and then you also can say that there was a bit of ego with him in saying he did it, because at school he was kind of prideful, like, I did this.
Oh, he's prideful. He did it, but he did it because that's his boy, and he wanted to like have his back.
Yeah,
no matter what. And
nothing wrong with that.
But they said that in the monologue that 50 gave when the scene was happening, when they're introducing these characters, he literally says that. Yeah. So to me, what's going to be the most interesting thing coming from this episode is that Rock had Kanan set up his friend, and he didn't know.
Yeah, and that's definitely a theme going forward.
And it's a theme of them not being honest with him.
Yeah,
because now we're seeing possibly why Kanan not only had trust issues, huge trust issues in the power seasons,
family trust issues too.
That's what I was about to get into. That's the other thing, and this is part of the reason why.
And you also got to think too, like Jukebox becomes a casualty here because she knew.
Yes,
and even though she knew unconsciously, she knew, and that's all he's going to know. So, and you have to think too. If you look at Kanan in this standpoint, we break down Kanan's psychology. He's innocent. He's definitely dealing with guilt. Davita's definitely piling on the guilt, but it's not the purest form of guilt because he's in love. So he's kind of being strung around by whatever her demeanor is. If she's cool, then he's cool. If she's playing guilt, then he's guilty. You know what I mean? So you have that tug of war aspect with her, and then you're going to have his mother and the uncles, where you're kind of just like, oh, so this is what y'all doing, regardless of what he believes, because he feels like he's in it. His mom is telling him, like, you got a gun, I'm gonna get you, you're gonna be TTG, and then basically she equips him and puts him on the bench. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you got Jukebox, who's his right-hand man, cousin woman, all that other stuff. And then, so you knew about my uncle killing my best friend, and you didn't say nothing?
Yeah.
It's a crazy revelation that's happening with him, that, we know his end story, as he's been saying frequently, but to kind of see this kind of build up, I have a strange feeling. This is my wild prediction that by the end of this series, we're going to sympathize with Kanan way more than we ever could imagine, and look at him totally different in Power. Because Power, he was just he was a villain.
But the weird part, as I went back and I started thinking more about that exact scenario, because that's what I thought. I said, okay, by the end of this season, not even series, this season, the sympathy level is going to be extremely high for Kanan.
Yeah,
because no matter what monstrous acts he does, we kind of see he was molded to be this way by tragic things that happened to him. But then I started thinking about Power and like, wait a minute, when was Kanan actually ever a villain?
Yeah, I mean, it's the perception that Ghost gave to the viewers, and because Ghost, no, but we could talk about this. But you have, ever since we started covering Power, we've been very expressive that Ghost is the villain. Guy. Yeah,
he is the villain. Like, no matter what we got to say about Kanan, always remember, Ghost lied, set him up, and sent him to jail.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer that anytime somebody lies, they prevent anybody from being able to tell the truth. So you automatically put them in a disadvantage. So, it's going to be interesting seeing the whole Kanan revelation and ultimately how he gets to the point. But I think this is definitely one of those episodes where you have to kind of sit back and say, oh, this is not right. This is a high school kid, get away from high school. Yeah, kid. Yeah. High school is some of the best days of your life. And regardless of him pulling the trigger, and you can say whatever you want about that.
Or that you just needed a fall guy. Yeah. That's what it is. They needed a fall guy.
Yeah.
And they used him.
So let's talk about Mark real quick. Should we mention Davina's mom coming in there strung out? You think that plays any part first? she was. I mean, I think the only and I think and I think the only reason why she was name dropped, which I wrote it down, Patricia, because I'm like, because her being sprung out is only setting the tone for what's the drug situation in the town. Because we haven't seen it yet. Everybody's clean.
Not a drug situation. Like, who's the dad?
Yeah.
What interesting twist Power will give you a twist.
Yeah.
What very interesting twist would they like to put on?
It's Ghost.
I know everybody wants to do. What happened if her Kanan are brother and sister? Look at, we're just doing wild stuff out there now. I'm just like,
and look, it's on par, man. Because some of the stuff I be seeing people say, I'm like, yo, what show are y'all watching? Because I don't know.
Hey, if it's not the ghost of ghosts visiting the past,
Ghost came back. He's back. So,
but I think maybe in future episodes we may understand the importance of naming the mother, because again, that is a highly important thing to say. They could have just said mom.
Yeah,
they didn't have to say her name.
Yeah,
and this introduction, I don't think is just for one episode.
Yeah, and I
mean, think we're going to see more.
And Davina is not just the love interest here. We're going to see more of this character. We're going to see who clearly loved Buck, even though she wasn't with him, but cared about him enough to kind of even set a characterization of him, saying, yeah, he may have been a bad guy. Y'all may not have been cool, but he treated me good. So,
and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of commentary in this episode that's not throwaway, especially for a second episode. I know this is Power Book 3, but for a second episode of a series, there's a lot of dialogue, and none of it's throwaway. So that means, like, think about why they're saying these things. Here's another thing too that I wanted to bring up. Marvin, Marcus. He went to the club, and him and Symphony.
Yep.
Are cool. I mean, they had that little like brother moment of like, oh, you with my sister, blah 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 blah. But then it was kind of like, okay, cool. What do you make of this? Because this is the one scenario of this episode. I was like, huh?
Yeah, I find that odd for him to even have that discussion with Symphony about Rock at this episode. But I don't know, because I'm still not trusting Symphony. I swear Symphony's an undercover cop.
Yeah,
I swear he's an undercover cop.
But
so I'm not fully trusting him yet. And Marcus is just Marvin. Triple M is just an overly friendly guy.
Yeah.
Like down. I go back to the beginning portions of the episode with him here when they're at the diner. And he tries to really chastise Rock for giving up the corner for Kanan in the first place. Like, that's not the move you should have made anyway. And look, you did it, and look where we're still at right now.
Yeah.
That's like a conflict you're really going to see between them. And that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Get to the point where he feels he should be the one making these decisions.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's not the conversation for tonight, but it's definitely the conversation to keep on tap. But I will say this, though. When we think about the setup with D-Wiz and Symphony, I'm going to keep getting tongue-tied by this. He didn't work that night.
Yep.
And Rock played her hand towards him. I mean, he said take it slow, and maybe she like him, maybe she don't. But she had to do what she had to do to keep him grounded.
Ass coat on that whole night. She like, nope, we're gonna keep this coat on the whole. I'd have been trying to take that coat off the whole night. Like, you sure you don't want to take that coat off?
But she had to keep him grounded, because this was the setup for Lulu in order to bring him to the club to do what he had to do, and no one would know. Which also kind of coincides with was this Marvin's whole plan with having a party? Like, and again, the reason I bring this up is because this is actually a good sign for them working as a unit. The three of them had their assignments, and they all executed to do what they had to do.
But we can also see by the beginning of the episode, they were not happy that Marcus wanted to throw a party. That's
Yeah,
the
but it
first thing they
worked.
said. Like, Nick, a party, and this is what he's thinking about. Like, but his reasoning for throwing the party made perfectly good sense. We
Yeah,
still gotta let folks know we out here.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's something you must do in this game, is to let people know that. So his
yeah,
reasoning for throwing the party was great. I think it was just Rock and Lulu took that opportunity to do something else. Down to Rock, hey, why not invite D over? I rented new. That means she went all the way to Earl's. It had to be Earl's back in the day because Blockbuster went around. She went all the way to Earl's to rent New Jack City just for her setup. Man.
Hey yo, shut up, dog. Shut up. See, I know some Earls. I ain't that young, but I know some Earls. Hey, but check this out, though. Omar Epps' character, the detective, went to Buck. We knew he had something to do with the streets.
Yep.
And he and I went to Buck, went to Unique, and said that Buck was one of your guys. And
yep.
And Unique has been playing it as if he wasn't. He was kind of just playing it like the streets want blood. I a body for a body, and Buck guys are, they're going to do what they're going to do. He said I turned all my people back. I held my people back,
but there's still
I
people
can't
that ride for Buck.
And that's crazy because
Buck was his guy.
The Buck was his guy. I love this twist. I don't think there's going to get enough credit for people understanding this, but I love this twist because now things get real tricky now. Because even when you think about this, if Unique has all the blocks, all the corners, and he, because of the deal, but he still isn't considered the top person because that's what the detective promised. No more blood. I'll make sure you're the kingpin. If you stop the bodies, no more blood, I'll make sure you kingpin. And he said this, and I had to write this down because this was also important too. Where is it at? Right. He said that Rock took over for High Post.
Yep.
And
High Post side, Rock took over.
And look, key thing, High Post. She said, "Oh, her husband, boyfriend, something." It's not Kanan's dad. Kanan's dad is DEFCON. Who is this other person? Is the other question. You got major names being thrown around here, and people of statue, and it's like, oh, there's a significant backstory to how things got aligned, to how they are, and then you have Omar Epps' character, the detective, that's trying to create balance. But why does he care to do such? Is the question. And he also
feel Unique needs to be the one in charge to do such.
Yes, sir. Yes,
he
sir.
Clearly does not like Rock.
Yes, sir. Nailing it. So again, a lot of context in this episode. I'm excited to see where this kind of all plays out. And I think this is an episode, folks, that you definitely want to check out our review if you're watching it now. But obviously, I would say go back and watch the episode again, and also come back and run through this again, because there is a lot of things that we want to hear from you all in the comments that we may not be picking up on. But this episode has a lot of descriptives that are super important going forward. This wasn't just action, and it wasn't just talking, but it definitely was a lot of like context to plot development, both in the past and both now. That's really
the key part. This episode really set up, as I said before, between the relationship between Rock and Kanan, with him setting up his best friend and not knowing it. This episode is full of threads that are going to lead throughout this season.
I love the word threads.
This is the one that's going to lead the way on. I think every story that they brought up is something that's going to pay dividends in the rest of the season, whether it be the little focus on Jukebox and the other white girl and their relationship, Marcus and his relationship,
Tony,
Lulu and Rock, which I think is going to be the most interesting one of the most interesting relationships.
Yeah. Well, Lulu's also a ladies' man. I want to put that in there too, because it seems like anytime he meets a lady, he's fond of them, and that's a very traditional style of character in this era, and is also super problematic. So while he seems to be cool, calm, and collective, which also, by the way, when D-Wiz was murdered by him, he showed an emotional break, which is
right there. Yep,
super key. Super key.
That's another reason why I said I'm waiting to see the evolution of him and Rock's relationship because he clearly didn't want to do that. And part of it is, could he think that that wasn't the right call to make?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it will definitely come about because it's one episode away now from when Kanan says, "Yo, what happened?" And he knows how his family runs.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he don't, do you lead Kanan to think that Buck people did this? And you send Kanan back down the same road that he just came back down from?
Because then he's gonna be out for blood.
It's
going to be a very interesting thing moving forward with a lot of these storylines here out of this episode.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, is there anything else really important I want to bring? Because I just want to quickly run down the characters and where I feel like their psychologies at. I mean, we still have Rock running it, and we don't really know the relationship in its certainty with Symphony. You do have Marvin.
That name is gonna keep on throwing me off, Joe.
Yeah, it is. I need him to get a nickname. Everybody else got a nickname. I need him to get like Simp. Yeah, Simp. Yeah. But Marvin, who is the comedic act right now, but he loves him some Tony. And it was also interesting that when Lulu saw him fighting, he said he can hold his own. And I don't know, was that part of the setup or does he truly feel that way? And that will be interesting too.
That's something else to look into.
Yes,
if
it
he
is.
Really feels that Marcus can hold his own.
Yeah.
And we get introduced to maybe some future hitters for Marcus.
Yeah.
And when he said, "Oh, where y'all from?" "Oh, QB." I'm like,
those are some OGs.
We may have a very interesting dynamic here if he brings them in, because who will they be faithful to?
Yeah.
Him.
Yeah. One of them OGs look like my uncle. I was like, oh shit.
I'm just wondering, how did the word get out? He said, "Well, y'all may be looking for some hitters." Like, that ain't something that's just to say.
Yeah. You might want to pipe your mic up on that one a little bit, because you're right. That was definitely something that was like, wait, what? How did that word get around? This ain't Facebook error. Like, how'd you find out?
So I'm real interested to see how that works with them.
Yeah, because my uncle's not Jerome, so Uncle Jerome of Snowfall was definitely ready to go. He was right there in the front saying that I heard y'all need some hitters, so please be aware that that definitely is a very interesting situation. And I don't know if they've shown them being locked up as well too, so that also could be interesting, because they definitely got their hands dirty. So we'll see. And Tony all of a sudden feels in love with Marvin because she's never had somebody fight for her.
That's all it takes.
So,
that's all it takes.
Wonder what that means. Wonder what that means for the club. I mean,
horrible statement. And I know I'm about to say something. It's going to be bad because it's going to be perceived a certain way. But that's all you got to do with women. Women are very simple. You just show them you care just a little bit, and they'll fall hell over heels for you.
Yeah,
she have that joint in love, and all this dude did was throw a punch. That's it. That's all it took.
Yeah. I am a little bit disappointed that the character D-Wiz we do not get to learn more about, because I thought that could be interesting, but also it could be very traditional for you to have the main guy and their best friend, and they just run the streets together. We see it all the time, but we rarely see the main character by themselves running the streets, because they lost their best friend at a very early significant age, especially in Power, because every Power main character has a best friend. Goes Tommy, Reek, and Braden. So this would have been the same thing, D-Wiz and Kanan. So and it's interesting to know that D-Wiz died at such a young part of the story. That's why we never really heard from him when Kanan talks about his past life to Tariq. So this is an interesting note. Rock making sure that they got the I ain't gonna say stash house, I mean the place for them to set up shop at. Yeah, so
that's another thing that's going to pay dividends of how is that going to work now. With moving everything to a new location, because again, we know that's not an easy thing for her. That's why she's the most interesting character on this show. Because a lot of the threads, she's in a lot of them. And whatever she does is going to pay dividends for everything else that happens in this show. And she is, again, I love a strong lead female type of character. She's not crazy. What's her name? Damn it, Monet. She's not Monet.
Yeah.
She's not Tasha. She's not any of these characters, because this one happens to be the true Queen Pen.
Yeah.
There is no one she's answering to here.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
That's what makes this more interesting to see this story play out and everything that she's going through, especially this relationship with her son, because eventually not telling him the truth is not going to be a good thing.
Yeah, lying has never been good in power. That's the one consistent theme so far.
That's it.
Yeah. So.
Everybody die when they lie.
Yep.
Except for, was it Chance? I said the boy name right.
Who?
What was Tommy's stepson?
What was his name? Yeah, they're gonna get you in the comments now.
Look, how could they? The nigga, he didn't say more than 8 lines in 7 years. You can't get mad at me that I can't remember that boy name. I think it's Chance though.
It ain't Chance.
To see.
It ain't Chance. It's
it ain't Carmelo. I know that much. So I thought it would be. It would be Chance.
It ain't no damn Chance. Oh man. Well, I have nothing else for this episode. Anything else you want to go there?
This episode was very straightforward. So we can tell you all, like, pay attention to what they're saying here, because a lot of this is going to be and lead to a lot of setup for this season to move forward. But I think because of the split of the first and the second half of it and the way it felt, it doesn't lead to a lot of surprises or a lot of guessing with conversations and what they said. Everything was kind of direct here. Yeah, kind of. And maybe that's the way this show will be until you get to the midway point. Yeah, because at that point, it's just Rock making decisions. Yeah, I would say we only one we didn't talk about was the detective and his partner, which is another interesting relationship that again, it won't pay dividends till later on in the season, because the level of disrespect he's showing her.
It's training day.
But then you got to wonder, at what point does she may flip on him?
It's also training day.
No, I may flip legally, though. I mean, what point does she go to Rock and say, hey, I got this information on this guy?
Also still training day. It's literally the plot of training day with some sprinkles on top. But yeah, I definitely agree. And I didn't want to focus on it because I think it is definitely one of those things where say keep an eye out on it. A little bit of hints here, but you know, long-term storytelling where you look at this moment, you say, this is where they started. This is where this all developed. Don't wait for the big boom to be like boom, you know, that's it. No. Look at it slowly building up, you know. Look as the thing, the light has been matched. The match has been lit.
Yeah, boy, wait a minute.
I'm tripping.
Hey, no, we're going to let that go along with you thinking that Whitney Houston song was an original song sung by Jukebox. It's fine.
Well, either way, beautiful voice. Really, really well done. And yeah, I definitely, if I had this thought just a little bit more, I say can be original because they didn't credit it then, so obviously it had to be. But she sung the hell out of that song. And what's scary though is that I'm glad that it is not an original song, because if it was, this slowly takes that turn down Empire where they started live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Oh man, yeah, they're not gonna do it. No.
Yeah,
well, we're not with another character from the Community, and they sing too. Nope. It would have to be Power. It would have to be Empire. I'm sorry.
Well, folks, totally jump in the comments. Let us know your thoughts about tonight's episode 2 of Power Book 3, Raising Kanan. As I said, we're back each and every week with your review, your number one stop for your reviews for the Power universe. Not Jaron Lucas. We're here each and every week. Thank you for tuning in, folks, and we'll see you all next week.